Well then, let us raise an army of bastards. Or whatever the hell that lady said. Welcome back to the story of Empress Matilda. In my last video, we discussed Matilda's childhood, her arranged marriage, and if men deserve rights. And we decided no. And where we are right now, Matilda is the only legitimate child of King Henry I of England, making her his only heir to the throne. The only problem is that the knights and the churchies are not down to have a woman rule England, and they make that perfectly clear. But King Henry would insist that it is Matilda who he is passing his throne to. And through the 1120s and 1130s, he's making all of these losers swear an oath, swearing that Matilda will be their queen. However, Matilda hasn't even lived in England since she was like 8 years old and sent off to get married, so they have no idea who they're even swearing an oath to. And so King Henry cooks up a backup plan. He remarries in hopes to create another legitimate heir that would just bypass this whole Matilda mess. Though that plan would be unsuccessful as well, and he would not create any new heirs with his new wife. But things were about to get a lot easier for King Henry in his fight to get Matilda accepted as his heir, when Matilda's creepy-ass husband, the Holy Roman Emperor Henry V, drops dead in May 1125. And since she had no surviving children with the emperor, she hop-skipped her little ass right back to England in 1126. And so now everyone gets to meet and get to know Matilda, and some of them were like, okay, fine, she seems smart and cool, but most of them were still like, no, women are weak, and also you suck ass as a king and you tax us too much, so we don't want anything to do with what you say. And Matilda would be chilling with her dad for a little bit, and then she would cross the English Channel to go live in Normandy. And her father would go on to arrange another marriage to her, to the 14-year-old Geoffrey Plantagenet. The king really wanted to marry Matilda into the Planet Fitness family because they controlled a lot of central northern France at the time, which would give Matilda access to a baller military when the time comes to claim the English throne. But in the meantime, shit is heating up. Her cousin Stephen has married another high-born woman named Matilda, and he has really cemented himself as the rival to the throne. And Matilda is not doing so hot in her politically arranged marriage to a teenager, and she decides to bounce out of Anjou altogether and go live in Normandy. And her dad is like, oh my fucking god, get your ass back to your husband now. I am busting my ass over here to get you accepted on the throne. I don't care if you're miserable, okay? Stability of the kingdom comes first. Get back over there. And in 1131, Matilda and her husband would reconcile. And in 1133, 2 years later, Matilda would give birth to a baby boy. And she would name the baby Henry after her father, but also as a declaration that this is King Henry's bloodline. This is his legacy. This is the new Henry. King Henry would come visit the baby, and everyone's popping bottles in the club because this baby represents stability for England. And then she pretty quickly had another baby named Geoffrey, and that baby would almost take her ass out. Like, it seemed for a while there that she was gonna just die. But she didn't. Her father did, though, shortly after, on a campaign in Normandy. Possibly from eating some fuck-ass fish, but also he might have just been old, I don't know. Either way, his body was barely cold before her cousin Stephen made his way to London to be crowned king. So Steve's greedy ass shows up in England trying to rally his supporters to claim the English throne. And King Stevo was named king just 3 weeks after King Henry's death in December 1135, despite that being a direct violation of the king's wishes. And Matilda during this is all the way in France and also pregnant, so she has no way to get to London and thwart this plan of Stephen's. And a few months later, Matilda would pop out her third and final son, William. And Matilda's not stupid. She knows she's at a huge political disadvantage to overthrow her cousin Stephen as the king. So she has to be extremely strategic, and she takes a beat to try to get all her resources together. And within a few years, she has a few very well-positioned lords of England on her side, including some of her bastard siblings like Robert, and Scotland's on her side too, which is nice of them. There starts to be some pushback and kick-up of King Steve in 1138. And with the rebellion ignited, Matilda and her boys roll out to claim the throne within a year. And Matilda controlled a lot of the west of England, while Stephen controlled the east in London. So Stephen's in London, Matilda's in Bristol. And they mostly battle it out in the Midlands in the middle. And England is pretty divided in this. Most of the people trashing Matilda, though, because the English are weird freak losers and thought that she was a bitch foreigner, while also completely ignoring the fact that Stephen is French as fuck. And then a bunch of really boring battles happen, and I mean, who cares? But then King Steve gets captured by Team Matilda. Steve is thrown in prison, so that should be it, right? Matilda's the queen? Wrong. Matilda would still struggle even after capturing Steve with being crowned and having the people accept her as the queen. Matilda herself didn't even refer to herself as the queen during this time, instead calling herself the Lady of the English. But remember, Stephen is married to another Matilda. I kind of like to think of them as like Mario and Wario, so I'm gonna call the evil Matilda Watilda. And in hearing that her husband, King Stephen, had been captured, Watilda starts to create her own army to come after Matilda. So now we got Queen versus Empress. Watilda versus Matilda. And Watilda's army rolled up on Matilda's men and captured her half-brother Robert, her closest right-hand man, which put Matilda in a position where she now had to trade her cousin Stephen for her half-brother Robert. So Stephen is released to his wife, Watilda, and now everyone is back to their bases and we get prepared to do this shit again. And so the stage is set for round 2. And Stephen is determined to capture Matilda and put an end to this conflict. But can he do it? I guess you'll just have to wait and see. Make sure you leave me a comment so I can use it for the next video to see what happens in Matilda's Game of Thrones.